Hello everyone and welcome back to the Professor Harris YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be showing you through a lot of things. For video production 1, this is essentially a video I'm making for you guys. It's going to cover a number of the fundamentals, things that you'll really need to know when it comes to working inside studio, working in the studio, working in the control room for general production. I obviously have in mind what we're going to be doing for our final project, but this is a resource that's valuable not just to our class specifically, but something I wanted to make for the department as a whole. I want this resource to be something that's usable to many students going forward and potentially usable to those of you on the internet. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started in the control room, and then after that we'll switch out here to the studio with more in-depth videos coming in the future, specifically for video production too. So stand by, and thanks for watching us here at Franciscan University. Let me first introduce you to the control room we have here at Franciscan University. I'm going to take you from chair to chair, from position to position across the entire control room here, one at a time, and we're going to cover each position. Occupying Bay 1 and Bay 2 of our control room dashboard is our computer graphics system. For this production, this final production with Video Production 1, we won't be using any CG or computer-generated graphics, lower thirds of any kind, although in future iterations of this project we might. It's worth noting as well that this isn't just the CG station, this is also the live stream station. This is where you would set up and broadcast through links and different codes live streams. Those are things that I'm going to get into in video production too. But for the sake of this production, just be aware that that's what this station is. It's both computer graphics, live streaming, and guess what? It does a third thing. There's also a way to record to SDs or USBs through that top little flashing thing. Again, something I'll show you in video production too. In the control room, taking up bays 3 and bays 4 is the technical director's position. Now let's do some quick setup before we actually sit down and start messing with our switcher. First thing you're going to do is locate the remote. It's either adjacent to the switcher or up here on the top. More consistently, you'll find it up here on the back top of the console here area. But we can go ahead and press the power button and point it at both TVs as we do so to turn them both on. One other thing you might want to look over when you're setting up for the switcher is the system. Sometimes it's set weird. Sometimes the menus are on something strange and you're like, what am I looking at? The best way to get back, if we go to navigation menu and configuration, so navigation menu, configuration, and then if you're in one of these weird ones, you can go to system. In system, go to load sets. Right now, set 9 is active. If let's say you find it on Franciscan Beat or Presents, and you want to load back to set 9, you can select set 9, do load set from USB, all, and then yes. And then that's going to load all configuration settings, both up here and down there, to match everything that I'm about to show you as far as the switcher goes. So everything's the same every single time you sit down. The configuration is all set up the same. One more quick caveat to note is, let's say you just reset the system. I've just discovered that set 9 also has this weird little bug. You need to go to inputs, and then inside inputs, if you look at the screen, it doesn't quite look disfigured, but trust me, that image is disfigured. Currently it's set up to be in 1080i. If we look across here, we have camera 1, 2, 3, and over here it's set to 1080i. We want this set to 1080p. It's as simple as, again, okay, so you're in inputs, external, tap 1080i and change it to 1080p, and then close that. Same thing here, 1080p and 1080p. And then all 3 cameras should adjust. So now we can see the chairs back in there. The image before was kind of distorted. So if the image looks distorted, that's why you need to go to inputs, external, and then change these 3 settings on the cameras. So when we're talking about the switcher and the fundamentals of operating a switcher, we're talking about really just this bottom row. 90% of what you're going to do on the switcher is just this bottom row. So don't be overwhelmed by all the buttons and options. You should be familiar with what the industry calls preview or preset and program. We have these 2 rows here, which are the things we should be concerning ourselves with the most. The first row here is the preview / preset. These are where you set cameras or computer-generated graphics to be queued up before they get sent to program. So when I set preview, I select a button, And that means camera 1 is now going to be the next camera we switch to. This red on the program indicates which camera is live. So when I take this and I hit camera 2 under preview, and then come over here and press the cut transition button, we'll see this footage goes from preview to program instantly. Boom. Now our footage, which is in our program bus, is now actually being recorded to our Shogun system. This is our Shogun recording system. So program is the content, video, visuals that are being sent to your recording system. Preview is simply a preamble preview of what's to come next. So I can preview my different cameras. We can see that change there on the left. And then when I actually hit cut, it changes the one video feed from preview over to program. So let's say we want to open on black. So we hit black as program. We're on program. And now we want to fade into, let's say, camera 2, which is our wide shot. We can preview 2, starting out on black, preview 2, and then just come over here and fade up on black. And it doesn't matter if it's down or up. It's always going to fade the same amount depending on how you do it. You also have these 4 buttons here. There's dissolve, which is hard to read because it's so bright. Dissolve, wipe, digital video effect, and media wipe. So let's go through each one. Dissolve works by auto dissolving at a set frame rate that you can change with this auto button adjacent to the cut button. So currently with it set to dissolve and our preview set to black on our background, if I select auto, it's going to auto transition at 30 frames a second into black. I'm going to hit auto again because we had camera 2 in preview. So I can do that again. So with it set to dissolve, which again you probably can't see. Come on, camera. Whatever. It says dissolve, D-I-S-S. I can hit auto and boom, it's going to dissolve at a set 30 frame rate. If you tap this, you can change the frame rates. So you hit rate and then this panel lights up and it allows you to type in a specific rate. Let's say I want to do 10 frames. See? I hit enter. Now when I hit dissolve, it's going to transition very quickly. If I change the rate back to 30, 30, enter, changes it back to 30, I hit auto, and we see a much slower fade to black. So that's dissolve. Next we have wipe. If you do wipe, you can see up here we have a little menu that changes. We can choose what type of wipe transition we want. For instance, from the center, I can hit auto, and it's going to do the same thing. We can also choose the rate. We can also choose the percentages on which side the wipe's going to affect. We can choose how it wipes. There's a bazillion different kinds of transitions. Some of them are stupid looking. You can even scroll on this thing. Let's say we want to do a downward diagonal. Auto, boom, auto to black. There's some really ugly ones. We can also change the direction. We can do reverse flip-flop. So if I hit auto, it's going to go forward and backward, forward and backward. I can also change it to just reverse. So it'll transition from the bottom corner. This animation's dumb. Let's pick something else. Let's do top down. Auto, up, up, up. That's reverse. If I change it, go forward. We can go down, down, down. There's a million different sets you can do with the wipe transition. There's a bunch of them. There's a whole load. So more than likely, you won't be using any of these, but they're neat to have if you wanted to use a diamond transition for some reason. It's also set that you can automatically use this fader. So let's say I want to do a really, I want to come back. There we go. So you can do all kinds of goofy stuff with that. DVE's digital video effect, depending on what it's set to, you can do much the same things. Sometimes you get weird things like this. There's all kinds of weird stuff. And then media wipe. Media wipes, there's nothing loaded in the media wipe, I don't think, right now. Yeah, there's nothing loaded in the media wipe. But if you are going to use any 3 of these, more likely dissolve, wipe, or digital video effect, it'd be best just to keep it on dissolve so that you can do custom dissolves in and out by raising and lowering your fader. So, to review, you're going to preset the camera, your director says.
he's going to say something along the lines of ready camera 1 or preview camera 1. You'll be prepared with the cut button. He might say dissolve or fade up on camera 1. You'll be ready with your fader. You'll fade up on camera 1. Boom, you're live, you're going. I hope that makes sense. That's a quick overview. There's a million different ways to program this thing. I would ask that you don't come in here and start remapping the buses. Then we have to reset the board, and it's a whole nightmare. So that's the switcher. Occupying bay 5 of the control room dashboard is the director's position. So the director is primarily concerned with this headset. We can ignore this remote, it goes back up here. This headset and this little panel here. They're also going to be looking at everything else in the entire control room because they're the one making sure everything works and flows well. They're also going to be most concerned with what's going on in camera 1, 2, and 3, preview, and program. They are the ones intensely looking at these 3 screens, these 2 major screens, obviously, and deciding what's looking good, what's looking bad, what needs to change, how everything's running. Just some quick notes about the headset. As you sit down as the director, you should sit down with the headset, put the earpiece on your right so that you can have your left ear open to be able to speak and or hear your technical director. If you trust your technical director, you're going to listen to them, you're going to take their feedback, you're going to listen to them, you're going to see them bring up shots. The technical director might, on his own accord, start bringing up shots, be like, I think this one looks good right now, maybe this one. Now, you shouldn't operate as a rogue if you're the technical director, but if you see a shot you don't think the director sees, maybe bring it up. Maybe set it up for him so you can go, oh yeah, hey, camera looks good. Good job, TD. And then you guys can kind of communicate together. Another quick note, again, about the headsets for the director. We'll put the headset on with the mic, with this little mic bit up, it's going to be muted. When you bring it down, it'll be unmuted by default. So if you want to whisper about how bad your camera operators are, make sure that your mic is up all the way so that it's muted. But if you want to leave your headset on the entire production, making sure you've obviously got your headset cable plugged in to the left side here, you can just hit HDST. So again, headset plugged in, HDST, and then now your headset is on. If I touch this and start rubbing around on the microphone, any of these other headsets are going to be hearing kind of scratching noise because this headset is now firmly on. It's going to stay on the entire time. You're going to want to be able to have constant communication to the entire team, everyone on headsets, your technical director, your audio board operator, your floor director, your camera operators, everyone in the studio, people who most importantly have headsets on will be able to hear you the entire time. Be aware of that. If you're the director for this production, everyone expects you to know exactly what's happening, as it's happening, why it's happening, what's going on, everything that's going on. You should be aware of that. So I just discovered, as I sat down, headset HDST needs to be clicked, and so does talk. Talk needs to be red and enabled. If that light is off, you're not getting anything of the headset. Anyway, you're going to wear this headset, and you're going to call the shots. You need to know this production better than anybody else, front to back. You need to have a sheet, piece of paper, how long the times are. You're going to have a clock right here in front of you. You're going to have a clock up there in front of you. You're going to have an assistant director sitting next to you telling you how much time's left each segment, whether or not the mole was voted out. All of the information should not just be, you should be working with your assistant director, but you should be aware of yourself. Who's my talent? Who's talking? I mean, it's about constantly trying to have shots of the person that's talking, and if you can't have a shot of the person that's talking, have shots of the people that are listening and nodding, making sure that you're covering really every aspect, understanding what's part of the main production, understanding what's part of the kind of wrap-up production. For our specific final, we're going to have the main production, and then after that, we're going to have specific one-on-one interviews with each specific talent. You should be helping to try and organize and facilitate that as well. I mean, you're going to be, like I said, calling the shots. For instance, let me give some cues to the technical director. Ready, camera 1, take camera 1. Ready, camera 2, take 2. Ready, fade up on graphic, take graphic. We don't have any graphics for this production. Just ignore what I'm saying. Let's see. You'll start the countdown. So you'll say something along the lines of roll and confirm recording. That's telling our record operator to start the recording. I'll get to these recorders in front of us in a second, but roll and confirm recording. Start the clock. So someone's going to have the clock by default set to roughly 30 seconds. They'll do a preset here and they'll do down. I don't know if you can see that on screen or up there, but There's 30 seconds down, coming down on the clock. Your assistant director is going to be talking. It's going to be 23, 22, 21, 20. You're going to be saying things like, be ready to mic and cue talent. Be ready to fade up on 2. So they're going to start on black, ready, fade up on 2. And then as we get down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mic and cue talent, fade up on 1 or fade up on 2. Boom, you fade up on camera 2. Now the production's rolling. The floor director, you'd also notify the floor director. So mic and cue talent, when I say mic and cue talent, fade up on 1 or fade up on 2, that's mic the talent in here, cue the talent, floor director, that's your director, cue the talent, and fade up on camera 2. That's obviously our technical director here is going to fade up on camera 2. And then you're going to be aware, you're going to be giving call outs to the people as time's ticking down. Your assistant director is going to be notifying you 2 minutes left of the round. So you'll be on headset the whole time. You'll say 2 minutes left. Floor director, you're prepared to wrap. You're also going to be giving cues to the people who are operating lighting. So you're going to be ready to fade up on red, ready to fade down on the house lights, ready to fade up on green. And then you're going to give the command as soon as that comes up, fade up on green, fade up on red, whatever it might be, depending on, obviously what's happening with the production. So you have to be aware of whether or not things are looking good. We have a shader, someone who's going to be operating our camera control operating units. But you're also going to be required to look at each camera and go, does this look right? Right now, if we look at all 3 cameras, you can tell camera 1 is a little bit dark. So that would require us to fade up on 1 a little bit here. Might even require us to adjust the black point. You will have to adjust the black point to make sure that our set looks good. We're going to have 2 different kinds of black. You're going to be the one who's ultimately in control of making sure the entire production flows smoothly. So to give you a definitive list, one of the things you're going to start with is quiet on set, ready in the studio, ready in the control room, quiet in the control room. You're going to give those commands as needed if people are yapping or whatever, but you should, as a blanket statement, be like, quiet on set, quiet in the control room, like we're about to get started. Ready in the control room, ready on set, or stand by. Stand by in the studio is a common one. Stand by, obviously, the floor director's going to stick her hand up and they'll yell, stand by in the studio, quiet on set, and then it's common to give both those commands together. Roll and confirm recording means bada bing, bada boom. Go ahead and start the recording. Stand by in the studio, stand by in the control room. Everyone, get ready, get ready. Ready to come out on camera 2. So that's the command to our whatever. You should be communicating with them prior, or you can communicate with them in the second. Ready to fade up on camera 2, however you want to come in. Ready to fade up on mics. Ready to fade up on lighting if needed. And then fade up on 2, mic and cue talent. So fade up on 2, mic, fade up on their mics, and then cue the talent in the studio. And then take 2, and then bada bing, and then you go from there. And then when we stop down, when we reach the end of any given segment, you'll go ahead and say cut, wrap up, and it's up in the air whether or not we're going to stop recording, but typically you would say stop down recording. And then you could also even mute the talent if they're yapping or being too loud and it's hurting our ears here in the control room, specifically when we're stopped down. If we want our talent to be excited and overjoyed, that's the director. You got to communicate with your floor director. Hey, tell them to have a little more energy. Tell them they're all looking sleepy. Something along those lines. We are trying to get the best production possible out of these people. So that might include trying to push them along. Okay, so those are some basics. You should have your sheet. You should be prepared to give those commands. Hopefully you've settled into it and you're trying not to use the sheet as much as possible, but I will allow you to have a cheat sheet so that you're familiar with the commands that you should be using and familiar with how the production should go. All right, so that's the director. Controlling the top half of bays 5 and 6 on our control room dashboard is our Shogun recording system. This is how we capture our video from our program, what's going on in our studio, to our record drives. So let's go ahead and get started. With these, I'm going to be operating them for a production, but I want to give you guys reference on how to use them as well. You can power them on by pressing a button, power button, turns them on. You can see the red lights flash on. We know they're booting up. So go ahead and boot up. Right now on camera 1, I have a close-up. Camera 2, I have a mid shot. Camera 3, I have more of a full shot, but it's still a little loose. So we can visualize these differently. So our Shogun recorder, the first space captures program, anything that's happening in our program. Right now, we are on black. We also have captures. We can do independent captures for each specific camera. Camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3. Let me switch program to camera 1. Now I can see program set to camera 1, and we're seeing the same thing that's on camera 1. So this is our program. This is the mix down. Everything that happens as the director's calling the shots is what's going to be recorded to our drives. For our production, and for productions, you should know here in the studio, you will need to request drives from myself and Dr. Schaefer. These are rather expensive. So we have these drives. I'm going to teach you how to mount them and how to record to them and how to format them and all that stuff. For our production, I'm going to be dealing with this, but again, just wanted you to know. Drive 1 is one we're going to use first, and make sure when you put the drive in that you're putting in label side up. It goes in to this hole, slides to the back slowly, and then you press it in the rest of the way, and you'll know it's in when the record function becomes active. We can see the record and playback functions are off. When you press it in, the record function becomes functional, then you know it's working. What we can do then is format the drive. Up here in the upper right corner, there's a little button that says SSD right there off the end of my nail. You can tap that. Oh, are we locked? Here we go. If the screen's locked, if you go to tap something, the screen's locked, you have to press the power button in quickly. So if you tap it in, it locks the screen. If you tap it in again, it unlocks the screen. So just be aware of that. So you can tap the SSD button, go to Format, and then Format Drive. And then that's going to format and erase everything, set up the drive so that it can be recorded to. Obviously, you wouldn't format after because that would delete all your footage, so don't do that. Then once you're ready to go, all you have to do is press record, and that will start. Let me tap it again. Press record. That'll start flashing red. You'll see a red border appear around it. You'll know that you're capturing footage. Now, as I switch between cameras, we can see over there on drive 1 that we can switch between cameras, and that footage is being captured to that drive. And then when we're done with our production, or the director calls cut, you're going to need to awkwardly reach over him. If he specifically calls for the recording to stop, you can just tap record, and then that will stop the recording, and then you're good to go. If you're talking about unmounting the drive after the whole production is done, what you'll need to do is power down the system first. You'll press and hold this power button, and it'll shut down the system, and then you should be safe to remove the drive. All you have to do then is pull it out. So there you go. It'd be best if you didn't, definitely don't want to be unplugging drives as it's on, as it's recording to. If it's recording to and you yank out a drive, you're damaging the system, you're damaging the drive. Don't do that. Make sure you're stopping your recording. You can stop the recording and pull the drive out if you're done and you need to swap drives. That's perfectly fine, but don't just be yanking drives out. Someday I hope to have multiple drives of this so we can have all 3 cameras going at the same time. Then we can switch between on the edit if we choose. But that is not this day. Audio is recorded, so there is a mix down that gets recorded to these drives. So there is audio that gets recorded to these drives, but that's just reference audio. That's audio that the editors are going to use to try and sync up with the audio that's actually going to be captured. I am going to capture hopefully 7 different audio tracks from the soundboard directly to a USB or hard drive, and then it's that audio that will be given to our post-production team. They'll get the audio, they'll get the footage with some audio on it. They can wave sync. There's a way to do that directly in Premiere, and then they can start editing accordingly. Sweet. Also, as a record operator, you're going to be working with the UX 180 cameras. You probably have worked with them this semester. That footage for the post-production interviews, you should be the one collecting that. So as a record operator, you're going to stand by, wait until that filming is done, those interviews are done. Then you'll take those SD cards, collect all the footage, and you're going to store it into easy to understand and labeled folders in your guys' major production hard drive, or on a computer and or on the Nexus system, however you decide to do it. But make sure it's well organized. But the record operator is responsible for collecting all that. Occupying base 6 on the lower half of our control room dashboard is the assistant director. The assistant director keeps time. I'm going to teach you how to operate this time device here. So I'll go ahead and hit stop. That's going to stop that clock from going crazy. These little numbers are seconds, minutes, more minutes, and then hours. Realistically, you're only going to need something around the minutes the seconds to minutes counter for our production. Let's say you want to do 7 minutes as our time. What you can do is add 30 on top, and then when the director says, so you're the one keeping time, obviously. You're with the director. You're just talking about it. You know how long X round is going to be. Well, you can go ahead and put in 7 minutes, 30 seconds. You're going to do preset. That's going to preset it to be 7 minutes, 30 seconds. It's going to do the same thing up there on the right side of the clock. The left side is always going to be the time of day. But then you can go ahead and hit down when the director tells you to go ahead and start the clock. That's going to start ticking down. You'll count down from 30 out loud to the whole control room. 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16. While you're counting down out loud, the director is going to be screaming over you, quiet on set, stand by, roll and confirm recording, be ready to come out on camera 2, ready, 5, 4, 3, 2, mic and cue talent, fade up on 2, boom, something along those lines. Actually, that was terrible. You do fade up on 2, mic and cue talent at 1. So when there's 1 second left, that's when you'd want to give those cues. You don't want to have them start talking before you're actually ready. Anyway, so you're going to be keeping time. You're going to be making people aware. 5 minutes left, 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. And then you can go ahead and count down out loud once you get to 15 seconds, 20 seconds, to let everyone know we're coming out, this video is ending, or this round is ending, so that everyone's aware. And then you can do the kind of 5, 4, 3, and at 5, the director should be ready to cue red to start fading up, so that our talent know that it's time to stop talking. Maybe at 3, I'd say 3 seconds left, they could start to fade up on red. Just a slow 1, 2, 3, and then you reach full red, and then it stays up and they know, and blah, blah, blah. Round ends. So the round's ended. You can go ahead and stop and then preset. Don't hit reset. Reset does 0. Preset is what you want to do to set it to where it's supposed to be. Let's say the next round's supposed to be 5 minutes. You'll put 30 seconds or 20 seconds on that. Be aware you'll have to hit preset again for it to update, and then you'll hit down when the director tells you to go ahead and start the clock. And then bada bing, bada boom, you're down, you're going. You too should have a sheet, again, making sure you know what things are happening, that everything's on time, and everyone's aware. If the director forgets to give a cue, you can lean over the director and be like, hey, remember to cue the light guy. He's going to forget. He always forgets. You always forget. Last thing to note about the assistant director is that you also have your own headset. So you also have the ability to gum on the mics and yell at people as needed. Let's say the director during production turns to you and says, hey, blah, 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 blah. I need you to, after this shoot, run over, maybe tell somebody X thing. You should be able to write that down and or be ready to tell them that over the headset after you break down and you're no longer filming, something along those lines. The next position in our control room is the shader or CCU operator. This is the person whose job it is to make sure that the cameras are all looking appropriate and correct. Your first job when it comes to any production is to turn on the flipping cameras if the camera operators haven't already done so. If we look down here on the left side of these panels, you're going to see that little power button switch. You go ahead and switch that on. There's really nothing else you need to press down there. Just turn the cameras on. The next thing you need to be concerned with is the camera control unit. This is the camera control unit. This is where you adjust the cameras. You're also going to want to turn on this bad boy. This is going to turn on some screens for you that should give you an accurate representation what your footage should look like, or your camera should look like. So with it booted up now, we can see our different vector scopes that tell us what's going on with our footage. I have gone and set this up to be just absolute nightmare fuel for you, to show you when we have 3 extremely different looking cameras, how to fix that, how to get that back into correct orientation. Something to note, when you initially turn the cameras on, they're going to be black. The iris is going to be all the way shut. The way to turn it back on is to, these will typically be on one side or the other, is to press this in and fade it up. And if that doesn't work, press it in at the top. Press it in, boop, boop, boop. Just keep goofing around with it until something works, and then it should come right back up for you. Okay. All right. So let me get my camera set up, and I'm going to show you. Well, actually, tell you what, I think it's gonna be a little more flexible if I just hold this. All right. So, what are we doing here? What are we trying to do? Right now, we can see this shot, this center shot, is extremely overblown. We can see it on our vector scope, on our lines, what's going on. We can see it on our histogram, whatever it's called, that we're way up in the top. What we want to do is bring this back down to a normal range. The way we bring this back down to a normal range is when we use the main fader guy, this adjusts our primary. This is kind of our up and down, but it's squishing and stretching. What we want to use is there's a little dial on this that you can twist back and forth. That adjusts your median. So if I slide this to the left, it's going to bring it back down. We want our blacks to touch the bottom line. We also want to bring our shot back in to equalize. So I'm fading it back up to bring it back in and out to equalize our brights. So you can think of the little knobby adjustment to adjust the base, the lowest colors, the blacks. We want our blacks to just touch the bottom. And then we want to push, after we twist this, we want it to just touch the bottom. And then we want to push up on the knob to bring our whites back up to true white so they hit the top of our graph. And you can see they'll start to peak too much when these red lines start to appear above. It's okay if it touches that red line though. So let's go across all three of these and start doing the same thing. So we'll adjust our little thing here. We'll push this up. We'll rotate the ring on the knob to get it down to black. And then we'll bring this up to a reasonable color, trying to match it visually with the one adjacent to it. It's best if you try and equalize them here. Okay, so let's go to this first one now. We'll bring, oh gee whiz, this one's all over the place. Okay, we'll rotate the ring back up, we'll bring it back down to black, and then it's already quite high. Sometimes these faders can be a little bit finicky. But now it's all looking like we've got whites that just touch the very top, blacks that touch just the very bottom. And when we pull out and look at this and then come over to our record Shogun capture system here, it's actually looking really consistent. It looks overblown on my phone, but there's camera 1, there's camera 2, and there's camera 3. The thing you're looking for most with this is consistency. You want consistency. You want to look across all three cameras and go, these shots look visually similar, not in their composition, but in their correction. I really wish my phone could capture this, or my camera could capture this a little bit better, but no, this looks really good. One thing to note, though, is when we do our production, we are going to have a black backdrop. One of the things you may need to do is crank down our blacks so we can achieve a darker look. Yes, it's going to darken up our footage, but it's also going to make it so that our blacks match. And ultimately what we want to do, because our black backdrop drapes are going to be different kinds of blacks, we'll want to iris this. We're going to bring the blacks down, not iris. We'll bring the blacks down to achieve that. You don't necessarily want to iris up and down. You want to leave that at a normal scale so that our shots look consistent. But you should be aware that twisting this little knob on the bottom will be necessary to bring down our blacks. Now, we've kind of adjusted our cameras. We've adjusted the brightness. We've made the scope kind of match. We're happy with our lighting setup. And you've done this with not the studio, not the house lights on. We have the house lights on. You want to turn on the studio lights. You want to light it. You're going to be working with the director of lighting or the chief lighting technician, the best boy electric, the gaffer, whoever it is working and operating the lights in the studio. You want them to have those lights on when you do this to try and match correctly each camera. Then once you have that lighting setup completed, once you have these cameras matching, you're going to want to white balance the cameras. Let me show you how to white balance. Okay, so to white balance, one of the things you'll do, and I already said this before, you would have done the waveforms with the correct studio lights on, or the lights that you would be using for your production. You'll bring in a white card. So I went into the studio, I set up a white card. I have camera 1 and camera 3 set up and pointed at the white card with the camera zoomed in all the way and focus set correctly on the white board. To white balance, it's as simple as coming up here to the top in red where it says white and selecting that. And then it should execute an auto white balance. Over level. We might need to fade down a little bit on our level here. We'll hit exit and we'll do that. Decrease this. Let's try again. Executing, complete. Okay, it's not properly white balanced that. All right, so let's do this again. We'll bring this knob down. we'll go to, oh, that killed our iris. Let me fade it back up here to something where we were. And then I'll hit white balance for this one. Executing complete. Now that's white balanced. Camera 1 and camera 3 are white balanced. And then just for funsies, even though it's not zoomed in all the way, I'm going to try and white balance for camera 2 here. Oh, it's got an error. It's not exactly where it needs to be. Might need to be lowered here. Let's try this. Let's try this again. Chart, executing, complete. Now that's not probably, it's probably not going to be right, and I'll go ahead and zoom out on the cameras in the studio and then check how all our colors look. So there we go. After playing with it for a little bit, going up and down on our faders, you can also directly adjust the red, green, blue with these. So let's see, it's at 41. If I start to crank this up, you can see that change as I go in and out with it. I'm going to set that back to 41. Again, the main thing you're looking for is consistency across the board, and that looks very consistent to me. So if you need any extra assistance with this, I'd be happy to help you, and we can make this production look as good as possible. This is something that can be fixed in post, but it's going to be really difficult, so it's better to just get it right on the day. All right, sweet. So shader, cameras, you got the white balance, you had the camera operator zoom into the white all the way, you set it, and you should be good to go for your production. Yeah, and then when you're done with the production, you can go ahead and turn off that power. Don't touch anything about this, and then power down the cameras when the production has finished. Over here in the corner of the room, we have in the control room dashboard, we have the very end where we have the audio board. The audio board and audio tech guy is going to be operating from here. There are some things you need to know. One of the first things you'll do is you'll show up to this. This will probably be on home. You'll come over to scene. You'll select VP1. You'll do recall and say yes. That'll set the board to the correct settings and where it's supposed to be for our production. On the right here, you have the master fader. This controls all of these other audio signals at the same time. So fading this up and down will control the audio to the whole room and to the Shogun recorders. When you're set to LR, LR program controls the audio that's again sent to this room and sent to the Shogun recorders. When we're talking about stream, we're talking about a backup audio that'll be sent over to this system up here. I'll brief you on that if you need more clarification, but as a soft suggestion, always keep it on LR. There is a chance, and there's good likelihood, that I will be using USB to capture the raw audio. So this is going to be a version of all the audio that's irrespective of any of your mixing or fading. And this audio will be sent over to the post-production guys so that they can mess with it as well. If I go to home and then QU drive in the upper right corner, we can, well, there's ways to format this. If I go to setup and then utility and then QU drive, I can format this drive and then confirm, and it's going to load. Once it's finished, I can come back to, I believe, home. Then I'll select QU drive. The audio, we'll see audio forms playing from 1 through 7 for our talent, different talent that are talking. And then I'll at some point go ahead and hit record. I'll tap record, arming, and then I'll hit play, or you can hit play. And that, once that red light comes on, it means it's firmly recording it, continue recording for the remainder of the production. Let's see, home, scene, where are we going? Yeah. Anyway, we can just head back to home. And then you're going to, for the production, be set to LR. You're going to have this up, and you're going to ask your talent to give you mic checks. They shouldn't necessarily count to 1 through 10. They shouldn't say the ABCs. They should be having a conversation. And you're going to get levels. Obviously, you're going to have mic them, so watch this quick old video on miking and how to mic talent. That has to do with miking our talent, either with shotgun or lavalier microphones. For this production, we are going to be using lavalier microphones. We have 8 of them. And let's bounce over to the studio where we can look a little bit at the lavalier microphones that we have and how to wire them to talent and get them set up with our system and our soundboard.
Okay, so you've left the safety of the soundboard in the control room, and now you're in the studio. You're coming to get lavalier mics to mic the talent, and let's break it down nice and slowly. So first of all, we have this awesome system for lavalier microphones. With a typical system for lavalier microphones, you have what's called the transmitter and the receiver. This is the transmitter. This is what's hooked up to the actual person, along with a cable and an actual mic, to your talent. Typically, on most productions, you'll have this transmitter, and you'll have something identical in size called the receiver. And the receiver is, again, very similar, but gets wired into your audio panels or into your audio deck to go to your audio board. Well, with our system, it's super fancy. We only have transmitters, and then the receivers are right there. These are the receivers. There's nothing here that you actually need to push or press. The only thing that you need to be aware of is the numbering system. We have WRLS 01, and that's for Lav 1. These are lined up in a row from 1 to 8. So we have 8 different lavalier microphone transmitters along with microphones and cables to go to this system. This system is already directly patched to the soundboard. So 1 through 8, all those faders are already set up, and I set them up to be synced with our receiver, which is super cool and makes your job super easy. So we're gonna go ahead and grab one of these kits. We're gonna make sure we attach it to the correct talent. There's gonna be an order for the talent from 1 to 7 on this production. Make sure 1 or 7 or more, depending on future iterations of this project. But we're gonna make sure we grab the correct corresponding number to the correct talent, and we're gonna bring this over to them and mic them now. So this is everything that comes within our bag. We have our transmitter, we have our little cable, and we have our little lavalier microphone. Now, something to note about these microphones, some of them have this little windscreen, and that protects from things like popping peas and when wind hits it from people speaking. Hopefully that's not happening during this production, but it almost always happens on every production. Something to note about these microphones is they are still microphones. They are still delicate. You should handle these with care. Don't be chucking these around on tables. Don't let talent de-mic themselves and drag the microphone along the floor. You should be instructing them to be delicate with the system and careful with it yourself so that they understand the gravitas of not dropping our transmitters and not dragging our microphones. All right, so before we actually mic up our talent, we're going to want to look over our transmitter. We're not going to want to wire anything yet. We're not going to plug this into the talent yet. We're going to do a quick check on our transmitter and make sure everything's the way that we need it. And that starts with every single time you start a new production, you can press either of these 2 buttons on the sides, and then you can press and lift this little hatch, and we reveal on the inside our batteries, 2 AA batteries, and the power button. Replace the batteries for every production, no matter what. That will ensure that the batteries don't die mid-production. If the batteries die in the middle of a round, it is going to be on you, and you will be fired immediately. So make sure that the batteries are good on your lavalier mics. It can be a waste of batteries to keep just switching the batteries every single time, but it ensures that this mistake never happens. This is a huge mistake and a very noob basic mistake that is going to get you in a lot of trouble. So you'll swap the batteries on it, and then you're going to go ahead and wire the microphone to your talent, and we'll go through that now. Okay, welcome to Miking Talent. One thing I want to say from the start is that when you are miking talent, nothing is sacred. Nothing is sacred. You are going to have, in certain circumstances, they will have to remove clothing, and it can get awkward, but it's up to you to stay professional. If you stay neutral, calm, and professional about it, when you ask, let's say, a professor or someone in clothing like this, you could say, I need you to unbutton all this. If they're wearing a t-shirt, you're going to need to wire it through and through the top of their shirt. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. But as far as positioning goes and how it's supposed to look, this is ideal. Now, this is a good distance from my mouth. This isn't too close. If it's too close, it starts to distort the frequencies, and we can pick up like rumble from my throat, especially in men. You'll get that kind of like, if it's too high, and if it's too low, obviously it's not going to be loud enough. So it needs to be a good distance from their actual head. This could be up maybe a tad more. I personally like mine, right about here though. If they're wearing a tie, then you're gonna almost always attach it to the tie. If they're not wearing a tie, they're just wearing what I'm wearing, you're gonna attach it to the shirt, just like so. If they're wearing a jacket and shirt like this, sometimes they'll have you attach it to the jacket. It's back and forth. It's really the decision of the sound guy and the director. It's a bounce between, but just know that if they've got a blazer on or a jacket, sometimes they'll wire it to the jacket and sometimes they'll wire it to the shirt. I think shirt's a safer bet and can look cleaner. Another thing is t-shirt. I'm going to show you, I'm going to unbutton this and we'll go through the t-shirt procedures. There's a good chance that students will show up with t-shirts on and we'll have to mic it that way, which isn't ideal, but again, we're going to work with what we got. So this, again, just for your reference, this is how it should look mic'd up on me. I'm going to show you how to do this under loop and then an over loop on the inside, and I'm going to explain that thoroughly so that you understand what you're supposed to do. This is a clean and professional look. This indicates to the people you work with that you know what you're doing. This setup here where you see that wire come down and loop back and then back into my shirt, it actually loops up. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. So miking talent, nothing sacred, keep it professional. A lot of times production assistants mic talent, but then for the productions I worked on as a floor director, I often have been the one to mic the talent. So be aware that it's not one set thing, and whoever's operating the soundboard and things like that, that's going to be their job. And we'll also have production assistants help with that too. So let's get into miking talent. Okay, so I said this earlier, but when you go to mic the talent, it's not going to be connected to the transmitter. It's going to look like this. You'll have your wire, you'll have your microphone on one end, and your little input on the other. So what you're going to do for a situation like this, we know we want to mic myself midline. We're going to take this cable and we're just going to run it through. We're going to push it through my shirt and we're going to run it down. And again, like I said, this can be awkward, but as long as you keep a professional demeanor, this will be okay. So that's going to run down my shirt. And what you also have the talent do is they'll untuck their shirt. So I'm actually going to untuck mine. You can't see it, but... And then I'm going to take that cable that is now running through the bottom of my shirt. It's sticking out the bottom. We're going to pull the slack through so that the microphone actually ends up where it's supposed to be. And quickly, I'm just going to clip this here just so it's not flying and flopping all over the place. So now what you can do is you can take this other end, and we're going to go ahead and wrap that around. In some instances, you might need to mic over the shoulder. It might run the cables in all kinds of weird directions. But I'm going to have the talent place this in their pocket if they have one, just for a second while we go and adjust the microphone the way it's supposed to be. So if the microphone, I'm going to get real close here. Let me tilt this down too if I can. If the microphone looks like this, it's just running straight down. You have just outed yourself as someone who doesn't know what they're doing. If you just clip it right into the shirt as is with this cable running straight down. The professional standard is that you take the cable and you...
Here's another pro tip, the so-called broadcast loop. This will give you that professional look you'd have seen on TV. To do this, run the cable from the mic through the handle of the clip, then complete the circle over the top and into the slot on the edge of the clip. Now, when you clip this onto your jacket or your shirt, you will get that neat, clean profile.
Jacket or your shirt, you will get that neat, clean profile.
Okay, your talent has committed the cardinal sin of showing up with a t-shirt on and kind of higher neck, and this is a perfect opportunity to run through this again. So again, nothing sacred. Have them run this down through their shirt so that we can mic them properly. We're going to put all that feed through. We're going to bring it around to the side, have them place that in their pocket just for a second. Cool. Keep feeding this down and through. Now, we are seeing the wire show up through my shirt because I'm wearing quite a thin shirt. Hopefully, we don't have that going on when we're actually doing the production. But the same rules apply this time that applied last time, where we're going to want to see that loop. Again, that little loop, that under then over loop, is going to indicate that you know what you're doing when it comes to miking talent. So now we have that under loop. And try and keep it level. So make sure it's level. If it can't be facing up, and it's not going to be, it should at least be as level as possible. So that's miking for a t-shirt. Now, when we're talking about miking for maybe a dress, that's where things get more complicated, things like spaghetti straps, you might just have to go like even lower, down to the middle of the cleavage. If you feel uncomfortable doing that as a male, that's fine. Ask one of the female production assistants or anyone else to do that as well. But if you are the person who has to mic the talent and it's the opposite sex and you want to keep it professional, just do that. Just be very straightforward, very professional. Ask them, be very clear with the instructions, make sure they know what you need them to do, and that you ensure professionalism, because that professionalism is going to carry. They're going to make it as awkward as you make it, so don't make it awkward at all. Is the best advice I can give. So that's miking, and this is the best you can kind of hope for, is minimal obstruction and minimal mess when you're talking about with the t-shirt. But yeah, with other productions, let's say we were trying to lav mic for like a film, we might take the windscreen off and we could like actually tape the microphone with like flesh tape to the skin, and then the microphone would sit under the shirt, and the shirt would be thick enough that you wouldn't see through and actually see it. But for the sake of what we're trying to do, come on. And you might need to come in here and adjust this multiple times to make sure that you're truly getting kind of a nice flat look for the microphone and that it is centered on the talent. So there you go. There's miking talent with the t-shirt. Okay, so you've got the mic ready. The cable's running through and down and to the side. You're going to want to make sure that cable and any excess cable gets kind of bunched up after you plug it into our transmitter. So our transmitter, the way that you properly plug this in, is you're going to come to the top here. You're going to find a little hole and you're going to press it in all the way. Once it's in all the way, then you're going to tighten this little gold ring here, and that's going to tighten this onto our transmitter so that it doesn't slip out and fall out during production. And you'll know it's tight when it gets tight. Don't over tighten this. Don't crank that down. There's no need to do that. Now, I had you place this in the talent's pocket while you were getting it set up, but the ideal setup for placing this permanently on the talent is to use this metal clip and clip it to the waistline, clip it to the belt line, anything that's not in direct shot of the camera. So you're going to do that on the side / on the back, on the hip, so it's not, again, in shot. And you can even throw the clothing over it and things like that. There are a few buttons on the top that you might need to be aware of. We have mute and sync. You can ignore the sync button, and we won't necessarily need to mute the talent, but make sure that the talent doesn't just start yanking off their mic. Like if we stop down and they start messing with it, no, your job is to make sure that that doesn't happen. Instead, what we can do is, let's say they need their privacy, they need to go use the restroom. We can open up the front, press and hold the power button, turn this off, and then we can unplug this and shove that in their pocket, and then they can go use the restroom as needed. Most of the time, you are supposed to like actually take the microphone off all the way, but you know, situation dependent. Okay, so we've got the talent mic'd up. Jumping back to where I was, we've got the talent mic'd up, and we need to turn on the actual transmitter. We'll press and hold this button, and the top's going to start lighting up. We can see that little orange light appears, and it turns red. It starts flashing, and it's turning on. Now, once it turns orange, you know that it's successfully turned on. We can click this front panel shut, and like I said, we can attach that to the pant line / the belt loop, or the belt line on the back or right side. And you know that the batteries are good because if we go over to the receiver, we can see there's a set screen for number 1, and we can see that the battery levels there are good. This is a perfect opportunity to come look over here at the transmitter. We can see the battery is actually really low for the lavalier microphone that I'm using. So this is why you want to check. This is why you want to change your batteries every time, because that battery would definitely die if we were doing a bigger production. So keep an eye out for that. And we know that we're getting audio levels because you'll see the little meters going up and down. And then if you're in the control room and you're working sound and you need a sound check, you can get on microphone, ask the floor director to ask the talent to start holding a conversation, count ABCs, but having them saying check, check, 1, 2, check, 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 that is not the proper way to get audio levels properly. So have the talent say something, say a phrase, have a conversation with someone briefly to get normal vocal normal vocals so we can adjust those with the fader in the control room. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. If it doesn't, you could just ask me on production or look to your superiors. Sweet. When we're demiking the talent, we're going to go ahead and take this off their hip, and we're going to go ahead and power it off. That's going to be the appropriate way to go about this. So you'll press and hold that power button until it turns off. And once it's off, you're free to unplug this. And that way, if you start unplugging this while it's still mic'd to the soundboard, you're going to get like loud pops, and it's not going to sound good in there. So make sure you power this off before you start unplugging the cables. And you're going to take this off by unscrewing it and then just pulling it out and then packing it back into the case that we had earlier.
Welcome back. All right, so now you're back at the soundboard. You've got everyone mic'd. Presumably you would have had this down so that it's not blaring out the people in here while you're micing them, while you're micing your talent. Well, once your talent are mic'd, you can get this faded up, and you can start fading up each individual person, figuring out what's their normal talking range, and adjust the volumes accordingly. We're going to be using the first 7, so you'll have 7 talent going at the same time. You're going to need to know and be able to watch and listen who's talking, what's going on, and how do you need to adjust to make those changes. You will have headphones here. They'll be plugged into the system, so you'll be able to monitor everything from there. One last thing to note, when you're done recording, you're going to go back to home, you'll go back to home, then QU drive, and then to stop this recording going onto the USB, you'll hit this square, and that will hold the recording, and it will be saved to the USB. Moving to the back end of the control room, we have the producer seat. On the thing it says LP line producer, but back here you can power on this monitor, and this is where the producer is going to sit, typically during the productions, although we might need you running talent, being a talent liaison, depending on what's happening. But this screen just displays program. This displays what's actually being recorded to the feed. And this is where you can do kind of a second quality check, making sure things are looking the way they're supposed to. Now, the producer shouldn't be sitting back here yelling out commands to the director and the technical director what to do. It should be more of along the lines of what you notice, and then maybe standing up and bringing that to their attention, and then saying, hey, maybe the next round this should be done instead of X, Y, and Z, and trying to just ensure the quality of the production and that everything's running smoothly. They'll also collaborate with positions across the whole control room and in the studio as needed to assist and support morale and anything else that's really needed. But a lot of the producer's work happens in pre-production, so there isn't much to say about production and their role in production other than they should be here, they should be maintaining and ensuring the quality of the production overall. Another position here in the back of the control room is the Avid record station. This is the computer that we use to set up Avid projects and then record them directly to the Nexus and or directly to this computer. Typically not to the computer, typically directly to the Nexus. But this is typically used by Presents, although it could be used by our class in future iterations, depending on the desire and the need to use Avid Media Composer. What's neat about this is this by default can allow for 3-camera recording, so we can capture all 3 cameras into a timeline, and then editing instead of necessarily sticking with the live edit, you can simply choose the captured edit, and you can switch between all 3 different cameras here as well. So that's an option. That might be an option going forward. This position does also have headphones. The producer can have headphones, but as you can see, there are no headphones there now currently, although you could grab a pair if there are some available. But yeah, that's the Avid record station. We might step into that with video production too. Again, in the back of the control room on the far back right, we have the teleprompt operator, teleprompter control operator. This is someone who's going to control the speed of the teleprompter, what scripts are getting loaded into, and the program that we have here. I won't be getting into this for this class because it won't necessarily be necessary for our production, although I might get into it for video production too. Just be aware that it exists, it's a thing, and this is how we control what gets projected onto our cameras in studio. Just for your reference, you can power on the teleprompter here, and it will boot up, and if a script is loaded, there's a screen down here that reflects on a plate of glass so that it can be read by the talent here on screen. But our talent has no need for this. It's an unscripted event. Another thing I'd like to say about the teleprompter operator is this is a position in the software and a program and a position just in general that you would have learned in digital broadcast and production. So not something I want to necessarily have to repeat in this class, but something we may return to, like I said, in video production too. Okay, entering the studio, we have the cameras. And this is kind of the front to back for the camera operators. For cameras, let's go over some basic things. Depending on your production, specifically on your talent, you're going to want to keep the cameras at shoulder height or but no higher than head height. We're trying to give a feeling that we're equal to our audience. So this height on the camera should be fine. And the camera should all be set to the exact same height. It would be weird if one camera was particularly lower. The way to adjust the height on the cameras is to come around to the side that has this locking knob. You can go ahead and twist it to unlock it, and that should give you the ability to raise and lower the camera pedestal. Once you have your camera at the height that your directors instructed you to get it to, or at an appropriate height for our production, you'll set it. So now the camera's at the correct height. What you're going to do next is get familiar and comfortable with your viewfinder. Feel free to unscrew your viewfinder, adjust it, rotate it. This is for you to manipulate to your liking. Don't be afraid to touch this and manipulate it. We have some brightness, contrast, and peaking settings here on the right. You really won't need to play with those unless this is too bright on your face for some reason during production. Then you can turn down the brightness for yourself. Note that turning and adjusting the brightness on the viewfinder on the camera does not affect how it looks in the studio. These are independent of one another. There are menu settings on the left side. I should have all the settings for you already set up. But if you accidentally activate menu settings, you can just press the menu button again. That will make them go away. If you come up to your camera and you know that it's on, but you're not seeing anything, it might be because the viewfinder is on standby. You might need to flip it to the on position, and then you're going to see stuff. We can see over there that there's a red light on the top of camera 3. That is called the tally light. Tally light indicates to the talent which camera is currently on. We can see the tally light is turned off on cameras 1 and 2, and that we are live or hot, or this camera is recording on camera 3. We also have the time code here on the front. If I went ahead and had the assistant director set a time code, that time would appear here, and we would know for our talent, this is something the floor director will brief people on, how much time is left within each segment. We also have our teleprompters. I showed you a little bit about this earlier. We're not going to be using them for this production. But the two primary controls of the camera, let's talk about those, are your zoom, which is this dial, moves in and out, and your focus, which is this knob here, which you twist left and right to gain and lose focus. Let's, before we start goofing around with those things, unlock the locks on the camera here. On the left side of the camera, this will always be the same. When the lock is up, they're engaged. When it's tight, they're engaged. Whenever you approach a camera and start operating it, turn the locks off. If you do not turn off the locks, the camera, you're damaging the tripod. 2, you look extremely unprofessional. You look like you have no idea what you're doing. This is one of those things that'll get you fired. Operating a camera with the locks on is so cringy. It shows them that you have no idea what you're doing. So make sure you disable these 2 locks. Don't unscrew this. This controls the height of your arms. You can unscrew this if you want to adjust the height of your focus and your zoom arms, moving them up or down, positioning them left and right. That's perfectly acceptable. Just when you walk up to the camera, disable your locks, then start moving it around. That'll free it up to go up and down, left and right. In addition to these locks, we have these little gauges. These gauges indicate how stiff or how easy, or how stiff or how loose it is to pan the camera up and down. So if I set it to 4, it's going to be a little bit easier. If I twist it up to, let's say, 8 or 9, it's going to be much more stiff and hard to move up and down. That stiffness is desirable because we want nice, consistent, smooth motion. Let's say you're framed a little too low on your talent and your director's like, I need you to pan up, but do it really slowly. With a stiff setting, you can do it very, very gradually rather than very quickly. That's desirable. A good camera operator is smooth in all things. Okay, let's cover the
controls, we'll start with zoom first because that's what's going to be most important. When we're talking about zoom, this is very similar to the cameras that you've been using all semester. One of the fundamental concepts of setting and working with a camera is to zoom in all the way on your subject and then set your focus and then zoom back out to the framing that you're looking for. And that's going to make sure that your talent is in focus. The way you zoom with the camera, pushing it to the right, zooms in, pushing it to the left, zooms out. You have the ability to adjust the speed, faster, twist it to the right, slower, twist it to the left. And we can see now it's much, much slower, even though I have it turned all the way. More than likely, you're going to need to be quick with having it going. So you'll want it set to fast. You want the ability to zoom in and out very quickly, get your focus, and then zoom back out. Professional tip for camera operators. One of the things you can do is pinch. Instead of sticking your thumb in here and relying on your big dopey thumb to zoom in and out, if you do what's called the pinch technique, where you pinch it and then you can, even though it's set really fast, you can zoom in really, really slow. Yes, I am zooming. So a good camera operator has the ability to zoom really slow, despite the fact that the settings turned up all the way. Something neat that you have the ability to do is to press the RET button. Where is the RET button here? Should be on, where is it? Not there. Is this it? No. That's your zoom in all the way. This is a quick button here. On the bottom right, if you click this button here, if you click that, it'll zoom in all the way for you, like as fast, like super fast, and then you can set your focus that way. Let's do that actually. I can't do this with two hands. Zoom in all the way. Oh, come on. Where'd the button go? Zoom in all the way, and then adjust your scroll wheel to get your focus. And then now you're crisp in focus, and you can snap back out to get the shot that your director had you. Let's say you were already set up for maybe like a close-up, but you have to check your focus still. You can hit this button, check your focus really quick, zoom back out, and then bada bing, bada boom, you're back on it. What else? Where's the RET? Is this it? No. Do these cameras not have it? That doesn't seem to work. Hello. Red 2, Red 3. Huh. Interesting. So in other studios, they have this function where it allows you to check which camera, the view of which other camera is live. I guess these cameras aren't set up to do that right now, although that is definitely a function that's possible. It's typically this button here, but as you can see, when I press it, it's going black for some reason. So I guess it's not set up on our systems here, but if you were in a different studio, that would be the case. Okay, well, moving on from there. So now that you know how to focus, now that you know where this little button is to like very quickly zoom in, get your focus, and then zoom back out, we should talk about the focus. This is the focus over here. The focus controls on these cameras are actually really, really easy to use. So let's zoom up here. I zoomed in all the way, and now all I have to do is adjust my wheel left and right. If you're not sure which, just pick a direction, and then you're going to find it. You're going to find what's in focus. That's how to focus. Boom. Once you find what's in focus, there's actually, I have the camera set, so they're going to give you a little color. On camera 1, for some reason, it's giving us yellow. On the other 2 cameras, it's giving us red, despite the fact that I've changed the settings on this multiple times to be yellow. We can see other things in our set have turned yellow too, so we know what's in focus as far as our wide shot goes. But that's the primary controls for operating the camera. One of the things you'll want to know, and one of the things you'll definitely want to do, is when you first approach your camera, you're going to put on your headset. The headset's typically left on the ring of the camera on the studio pedestal. You can go ahead and grab that ring, you can go ahead and grab that headset, put it on your head, and then you'll flip the mic down. You'll come up here to the mic line right here, and you're going to flip this either down or up, and it should indicate, it used to indicate, it's not doing it now, but when you do flip this down or up, your mic is going to be hot. So you'll tell your director, camera 1 signing on, so that your director knows who's on which camera and who's ready to do their job. As a camera operator, you're going to want to be on your headset as much as possible for the production. It's going to be obnoxious if you're not there.
If your headset volume is too loud, you can turn it up and down with this knob here, just adjacent to your controls. Another thing that'll get you fired is leaving your microphone on. You have to remember to talk and then flip it back to the center to shut up. Otherwise, you're going to be really obnoxious. Your director's going to be like, camera one, your mic is on. You're messing up the production here. They don't want you doing that. So keep that in mind as well. I talked about these knobs that allow you. This one on the left allows you to adjust the up and down. On the right over here, this one allows you to adjust the tightness, panning left and right. So, whether or not you want to go left, right, up, down, you have different tightness settings for those. And then you should always be adjusting it to your liking. Like, do you like it more loose? Do you like it more tight? It's all about preference. Now that you are ready to stop using your camera, you can go ahead and grab your headset, flip down or up, and say, camera one signing off, flip it back to center, set your mic down, your headset down on the left, and come over here, and the very first thing you're going to do is set your locks again. You want your locks set when you're not using your camera. Otherwise, you'll walk away from your camera, and it's going to pitch all the way up or nosedive down. You're going to be ruining your cable connections and all the other things. There's clearly a bunch of cables connected to this bad boy, but you can ignore those. Remember your basic instructions when it comes to operating cameras. Remember your dolly in, dolly out, truck left, truck right, pan up, pan down. Tilt up, tilt down, pan left, pan right. Your director is going to tell you what he wants. He wants you to tighten up your shot. That means zoom in, loosen up your shot, zoom out, check your focus, zoom in all the way. Where'd that button go? Zoom in all the way, check your focus, zoom back out. Do these things and be familiar with the camera, where these controls are, so that you can do them as fast as possible. It's going to make you a great camera operator. And then when you're done, typically we have the cameras parked within the triangles after production wraps, so make sure you do that as well. I think that's everything for the camera. Things you should note as a camera operator: you should be as quiet as possible. We shouldn't hear you. We shouldn't hear you move. We shouldn't hear anything. Be aware of your cables. Be aware of other people's cables. Cables can really mess you up. Let's say your director tells you to truck right, but right now we can see cables are wrapped up underneath that TV. You do not want that. You want enough cable surplus set up for you to do whatever it is you need to on any given day. This amount of cable is good. What I would like to point out is try your best not to step on these cables. I have fallen flat on my butt stepping on these cables before. They are slippery. They're wrapped in this like little plastic cord. If you hit it with your heel, it will slide you out. You will fall on your butt. So be aware where the cables are. Be aware of the things around you, your surroundings. Make sure you have enough space to execute your movements, and coordinate with your director to figure out which shots you're covering, which people you're covering. For instance, camera one, you're going to be covering the people on the right side. So we're going to have 7 people lined up here. You're going to cover 5, 6, 7. Those 3 people are your primary objective. If they start talking, you need to get a 2-shot, 3-shot, full shot, close up on one. Whatever the director decides, you need to be prepared and ready to do that. Get your focus really quickly, zoom back out to the shot that you had established, and then go from there. Transversely, for camera 2, you're going to be a safety shot. You're going to be holding a wide shot, making sure we can see all the talent at the same time, trying to ensure you have a good shot just in case things are going awry elsewhere. And maybe you'll be focusing on the 3 center persons, let's see, 3, 4, 5. Those might be your 3 primary. You might be required to get close-ups of them. And then camera 3, you're going to be on the right side here, but you're going to be filming talent 1, 2, and 3 across the left sides. Whenever they talk, you need to be prepared to hop on and, again, get your focus, get your shot. It's going to be very fast-paced. Your director's going to want you to be quick and proficient, and you're really one of the most important aspects of this production, ensuring that you're competent and quick with your tech to ensure smooth ride. Okay, that's pretty much everything for cameras. I'm going to go ahead and switch to the floor director. Make sure you listen to your floor director if you're a camera operator. Make sure you're listening to your director and their critiques. Don't shrug them off. You are the person who needs to be fast and improve quickly. Moving on to the floor director, I'm going to go ahead and start by telling the floor director you're here to grab Egan 4, which is your headset pack for the control room, or the studio. When you're in the studio, you have to be able to use your headset system efficiently and communicate with your director. So I'm going to teach you the front to back how to set this up
And this is also relevant for anybody else who might be floating during your production as well. Okay, floor director, so you've got your pack, you've got your headset bag. You're going to go ahead and pull out your headset. Go ahead and untangle the cable. And then you have really just the headset and the plug. You're going to take the plug, you'll plug it into the back. This is all very obvious. That'll connect. And then you'll press and hold this power button on the bottom right, and that'll boot on your headset. It's going to vibrate for a second. It's going to give you this. It should automatically connect to the correct channel. We'll wait and see if it does. Yep, channel 1. And then all you have to do now is put your headset on, preferably put the muff on the ear that's headed towards the control room. I like to put mine on my left ear in the Egan studio because the control room's typically on my left as I'm looking at talent. And then with it on your head, you're going to take this big metal clip and you're going to clip that to your belt. So make sure this is clipped onto your belt. If it can't be clipped in your belt, go home, put a belt on. If you're using one of these, if you know you're going to be carrying one of these, you should really have a way to secure it to your hip. This is an expensive system we have here. Professional, very, very widely used. If you want to talk to your director, one, you're going to be hearing your director constantly, so they'll be in your headset. So you've got your bit there. But you can just press the A button. When you press and hold this, it changes colors, I believe. Yep, changes to orange, and then as long as you're holding it, people can hear you. So just press and hold it, and then people will hear you, and you're good to go. Yeah, there's other functions. If you're accidentally set to talk all, good luck trying to figure out how to turn that off. But typically just pressing and holding A is the best way to respond to your director. We're going to go in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. It's easy as that. You also say stand by. Obviously, you stick your hand up. When the time's counting down for this production specifically, when we're running out of time or when specific segment's about to wrap, you're going to know, you're going to be the floor director, you're going to be peeking at, how much time do you have left. You're also going to be able to see it in the upper right corner there. I don't know if you can see this. It's above the lighting control panel back over there. So the floor director is aware of everything that's happening on time. He's giving cues. Maybe if our lighting director or best boy electric or chief technician doesn't have a headset and we need to relay which light to change, who won the game, you can come over here and communicate that with them. You can be pressing your button, communicating with the director via your headset, but you're running around, you're doing everything. The director sees, oh, camera 2, the lens is dirty, this talent's hair is out of place, go over there and fix that. You are the catch-all. You're running around and doing everything. The big thing is just making sure everyone knows we're starting, the production's starting. Things are happening in the studio. They said quiet in the studio, quiet on set. Quiet on set, stand by. We're about to get started. Everybody ready? Stand by, ready in the studio. And then you're going to report. You're going to be reporting that back to the director so the director knows we're ready in here, ready to get started. And then they'll start the clock. And then you're going to count down out loud here. You'll count down until we get to 5 seconds left. You saw me. I did 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I cued underneath the camera that we're coming out on. We can see camera 2 right now. The tally light is on. That's the camera we're coming out on. So I'm cueing the talent. In other productions where it's more important which camera it is, the floor director will want to be next to that camera and being big and in charge and notifying. I already taught you guys some of the things in class about how to switch cameras, how to direct to switch cameras, and things like that. But the floor director is a catch-all. You're going to be doing a lot. And let's say some of our camera operators get sick, you're going to be the one jumping in to operate a camera. As a floor director as well, you're going to be assisting with miking talent. The soundboard operator or audio technician, that's their responsibility, but it's also going to be your responsibility as well to assist in making sure that the talent 1 through 7 has the correct mic, is wearing the correct mic, and that it's wired correctly for the type of clothing that they have. Sorry, I'm touching my microphone. So keep that in mind as well, that it's the correct distance from their mouth, things like that. I'm going to go ahead and link up a video on how to do that now for your reference, but I'm also going to have, I'll tell you what, I'll just save that for the soundboard operator. You as a floor director should be watching
I mean, every person should be watching the whole video front to back so that you can understand all the positions. That would be the best thing for everyone. Floor director is also going to be responsible for ensuring that the set is set up prior, that they know exactly how the set's supposed to be set up, that coordinating with the lighting technician, making sure that the lighting is set up, that everything's organized in the way that it's supposed to be. You're also talent liaison. You're making sure that the talent are comfortable, that they feel like they look good, that, just there's a million and one things you're responsible for as a floor director and assisting the director in making the production a success. All right, hello and welcome to our Strand FLX S24 light switch, light fader operating station here in the control room. This is located, behind the cameras, behind the big metal door, and up over here. This controls all the lights on our grid on the ceiling. And before production starts, you're going to make sure you verify with the light director, which might be you yourself, that you know which lights are operating which things. For small productions or quick productions, feel free to add like little post-it notes that you know which of these faders controls which things in the studio. But at a basis, I want to give you some pointers as to how this whole board operates, so that you don't screw anything up. When we approach the board, there are a few things in this region we want to make sure are set correctly. And that's the first thing is making sure that we're set on the correct list of lights. This has a toggleable second layer. So when I switch this is essentially 25 through 48. And when I switch it back, this is 1 through 24. 1 through 24, because we have less than 24 lights on our ceiling grid, that's what's actually set up. So make sure you're set to 1 through 24, that the light's next to that. And then the second thing is channels versus playbacks. Playbacks are like kind of lighting grid setups that you can pre-program. So for the sake of our production and for the sake of productions going forward, to keep things as simple as possible, we're going to operate off channels. So make sure that channels is lit, because channels allows you to simply slide the faders up, and whichever faders you're sliding up will activate the lights on the ceiling. We can see that this light's turned on and this one and that one. Let me turn off my overhead. These are our studio lights. You're responsible for flipping that for production too. And we can see, yes, the lights on the ceiling and the grid are working. And so when it's set to 1 through 24 and it's set to channels, you can make sure shift is off. Make sure if shift's on, it's gonna be red, make sure that's off. But everything else, you're pretty much good. You could also, if the clear light's on, that's not the end of the world, you can just leave that on. Double clicking the clear light turns off all the lights, and that can be obnoxious if you don't wanna be in the dark. So the way to reset it, if you double click clear, is to just slide the faders down and then slide them back up, and that's gonna get our lights turned back on. So very simple operation of this. When we're doing our production, we're gonna have 2 specifically labeled somewhere on this panel. One will be red, one will be green. So when we discover who the mole is or isn't, or if we're reaching the end of the round, you're just gonna like grab all these, you're gonna fade them all down, and you're gonna slide up that one red or green, whichever, dependent on the situation. And be in constant communication with the director and the floor director as well. The floor director might be able to assist you with that, but take responsibility yourself. All right, cool.
So there's two modes. Channel mode, where you control each individual light, and playback mode. With playback mode, what you can do is to set a playback, it's just each individual scene. Presents one is on 1, random one's on 2. If you want to set a new one, you can press record, pick one of the flashing ones, press 3. Or I think if you want to do a new one, you could press, if you want to like change up, you press update, and then let's say you press 2. And so now, update 2, something like that. So,
Gotcha.
So now when you want up, so okay, that's how it works.